Okay, we're going to talk about the financial system now. And there's two left after this. We have systems overview and then economics overview. Well, actually, there's three left because you have markets and labor. Never mind. We're going to talk about financializing an economy. So again, visualizing each system. Right here, we have the financial system at the very top. So what does it mean to financialize the economy? Often people will talk about a financialized economy. What does this mean? Generally, this is just a buzzword. There's no specific economic policy that leads to financialization. However, we can say that the more the financial system leads the other systems, the more financialized your economy is. So is this good or bad? Hypothetically, it's really good, but it never actually turns out that way. What it does is it makes the booms bigger, but it makes the busts even bigger. So what always happens is the financial system will grow like a cancer in the economy. And then when it does collapse, it's going to take every other system with it because it was cancerous. So you have really big booms, but also really big busts. So what policies lead to financialization? When loans are really easy to be made, like no background checks, no collateral, shitty collateral, maybe using a literal liability as an asset, like government debt, like we do now, you could say that this is financializing the economy. These lead to a lot of like really big busts. So like no background checks and no collateral. This is like part of the reason 2008 went so bad. We still do a lot of that. So when the financial system is also allowed to get highly interconnected, this is also leads to financialization. So like fractional reserve banking, which we'll talk about, or removal of the Glass-Steagall Act. This is insane that they did this, but it was done on purpose. Lowering the rate past the real rate, that's financializing the economy. Having ever exorbitant engineered assets like swaps, options, whatever. And then finally securitizing assets. Those are all financializing the economy essentially. So before, what should actually happen is like the PP should influence money, which influences debt, which influences financial. What happens when you financialize your economy is it starts working the other way, where the financial system now leads the debt system, which now leads the money system, which now leads the private property system. It's rather unhealthy for it to go down. Again, technically it could be good, but it's not ever going to be. So instead of the bottom systems influencing and leading the top systems, now the top systems lead and influence the bottom systems. And it never works out good. It always leads to collapse. But we always try it anyway, because why not? Humans love experimenting on things that they know are going to blow up. So let's talk about banks. We're going to real simply define what a bank is. So banks just take in deposits and just loan out part of it. So hypothetical, say a bank got $1 million in deposits. They keep $100,000 in reserves and loan out $900,000. What happens if people want to withdraw $200,000? Well, this is a bank run. This is a classic bank run. That bank's going to have to sell these loans that they made to other banks. And if that bank cannot sell those loans, then this bank goes under. And then the depositors are just bust. Because there's only $100,000 to withdraw. There's not $200,000 in there. So what's fractional reserve banking? Well, using the past hypothetical, you have $1 million deposited, $100,000 kept, and $900,000 loan. The problem is those $900,000 get deposited at other banks, which means those now create even more loans. And then this just repeats until the deposit is some number that can't even be loaned anymore. So what does this do? Well, for every dollar deposited, there are multiple dollars loaned. So if everyone in the United States went and withdrew their money right now, probably only about 1 to 10% of those dollars would be real. During the Great Depression, I think it was like 25%, maybe. I don't remember. But I really doubt, nowadays it's only 1 to 10%. You wouldn't have that much. This also makes the financial system heavily interconnected, which a heavily interconnected financial system is bad. B-A-D, bad. We learned this lesson in the Great Depression. Society seems to have forgotten. So this is fractional reserve banking up here. What happens is you have base money, which is like 3 trillion, I think. And then you have money in accounts due to fractional reserve banking. This is like 37 trillion. So it's like really like, if everyone pulls out their money, there's not that much base money to actually go around. So it's really hard to be like, well, again, it makes the boom bigger and the bust bigger. So if everyone were to rush right now, the entire banking system would collapse overnight. So is this the collateral? This is another part of financialization. So loans are usually backed by collateral. And what happens is the bank is going to take the collateral if the debtor defaults. This way, the bank can recoup some of their losses if the debtor defaults. So usually what happens is your house is the collateral for the bank when you make a mortgage. And what happens if you don't pay the mortgage? Well, the bank's just going to take your house. Sometimes other loans are used as collateral, like government debt. So weren't these a liability? Absolutely yes. Go read The Raven of Zurich to know how bad this is. This makes literally no sense. We should not be doing this. But again, it's kind of designed to blow up. Sometimes stocks are also used as collateral. This is really, really, really bad collateral. You really shouldn't be doing this. And especially because bailouts bloat the stock market, as I'll show you in a second. So when your collateral is bad, it's like having your fire escape plan being to rush straight into an industrial oven. It's like why even have collateral at that point? You might as well just make the loan. So anyway, here's your stocks. So this is the PE ratio, and essentially P here means price, and then E means earnings. So what happens is right here you have a PE ratio of 30. Well, you would need to get the dividend 30 times to get back your price. So you can clearly see bubbles. So like the 1929 very clearly bubbled up. .com bubble clearly bubbled up. The problem is when you have your collateral be a stock that's really highly inflated, the problem is it drops price immediately, which means your collateral gets really, really bad. Also, you can note the bailouts here. So you can note when they lowered the rate. So in 2003, they lowered the rate right here, which led to the financial bubble. And then it dropped really, really bad. And then they lowered the rate again, which led to this. They lower the rate. This is about 2016. You're right here. They lower the rate again. They do QE. I shouldn't say they're lowering the rate. They lower the rate right here to 0. Then they start doing QE. 2018, QE. And then you have the COVID 2020. And then you do QE, lower the rate again. You can really easily see bailouts here. Another financial thing that happens is options. So options are an asset that gives you the right to buy or sell another asset at a specific price. The right to buy only lasts a certain time, however. So hypothetically, these are good for the market as options make the market more efficient. What actually happens is the market abuses options and creates terrible messes. So these are options are really, really explosive. So Warren Buffett has a famous quote. He calls them financial weapons of mass destruction. They're like little mini nukes, essentially. But if they go great, well, great. You become a millionaire overnight. And if they go bust, well, you're broke. So you can see the financial system growing like a cancer. Again, bailouts make the problem worse. Options are drastically becoming greater. So this 0 DTE is this red part. This means 0 day till expiration. This is really, really bad that you have a bunch of options that expire that day. This is literally insane that you have this much. The financial system should have been ripped out a long time ago. The fact that this exists is disgusting. Frankly, it's disgusting. Just straight up. So what is securitization? Well, often the market is not going to buy certain financial assets. The market will deem them junks. So do these assets go to waste? No. What happens is someone will take a large amount of this garbage, just turn it into a single asset and say it's diversified. So these assets should have been thrown out, but because they are bought, they are kept in the financial system. They really shouldn't have been kept in the financial system. They should have been thrown out. So this is another reason the financial system grows like a cancer. The financial system really likes packaging garbage and eating it. So this is one of the reasons the housing market blew up in 2008. What happened is these mortgages weren't being bought, and then they were just being bundled together. And then because the bundle was quote unquote diversified, people were buying them instead of rejecting them. And then fun fact, this did not stop after 2008. It actually got a lot worse. So the next blow up is going to be massive. So let's visualize securitization. You see these unbought assets over here. These should be thrown out. What happens is you just put a box around these and then call them diversified. And now, the market's going to buy the big box. The market will buy this big box, which is made up of a bunch of small boxes that shouldn't have been bought. It's disgusting, but it still happens. So financial systems under low rates is also really important because when the rate is lowered, the financial system will grow really fast. And again, cancerously. The financial system is a cancer. So loans will be made on low rates that are really only profitable if they bail out forever. So it's really important to understand that jobs that are made and taken based on these garbage loans are only going to be kept on these garbage loans. So you have to keep bailing out to keep those jobs. So under low rates, loans are made to zombie companies and zombie nations that really shouldn't be made and really shouldn't be kept alive. Again, like this cancerous financial system should have been killed a while ago, but you keep lowering the rate, it stays. So it's important to remember bad loans make bank runs more likely. So when a loan goes bad, that means the depositor lost their deposit. But forever bailouts mean most deposits are at a strict loss unless bailouts continue. Essentially, what I'm saying is the financial system is so cancerous, they have to keep this going or everyone's bank account goes bust. Low rates also incentivize asset bubbles, which you'll see in a second. And then we have a quote from The Price of Time. In the era of finance mostly finances finance. So what happens is the financial system will just finance itself. It'll be cancerous. It'll take on as much resources as it can, even though it really shouldn't have had any in the first place. And it really should have gone through like essentially chemotherapy and should have been murdered. But we incentivize it to grow further. So what are bubbles? Well, assets will sometimes go through bubbles, and what happens is they'll have giant like mania where they'll go up so much and then it'll like drop a ton. And this is like fairly common. And they're like essentially 1-to-1 with lowering the rate, because what happens when you lower the rate, a bunch of like loans are made, the financial system will grow like a cancer, bubbles will take off. So generally, like the dot-com bubble literally happened because the Federal Reserve lowered rates. The current bubble, which you'll see in a second, happened because the Fed was lowering rates and doing quantitative easing. So does this look familiar at all? You can see this 2008, this is like the first sell-off, and then you have media attention, enthusiasm, greed, delusion. This is the new paradigm. This is when I was saying like, yo, you're like in a bubble, by the way, sell your assets. And everyone's like, no, we're going up to heaven. No, you're not. And then you have like denial and the bull trap. Again, people are like, Michael, you're wrong. And then we're at like the return to normal right now. And then, oh, by the way, you broke the pennant. And then you're going to like plummet all the way down. What's actually going to happen is the Fed's going to bail out again, because that's what they love doing. And then you're going to like go up again. So when the Fed does QE again, buy as much garbage as you can. Anyway, it's really important to understand QE and financial inflation. So this is an extremely illiquid gain. And what I mean by that is like you have a really small amount of buyers and sellers compared to what you normally have. So you have like really volatile gains. So you have like a 5% gain. That's a really extremely illiquid gain, because when that money becomes scarce or deflates, well, it's going to go down, and it's going to go down even worse. So when the downside does come, the stock market's going to plummet. You really don't want illiquid gains. When you have liquid gains, those are sort of healthy. A liquid gain should be really, really ignored. I went backwards. Sorry. So anyway, visualizing the current stock market situation, you have like, we're at like 5,000 right now. It's actually 4,500, but you're essentially at 5,000. But these are all like really illiquid QE gains. This like 5,000 to 2,000, this is going to burn away immediately. This is why in the earlier picture it says like it has so big drop. This is the QE plummet right here. And then green, well, this would have been stable, but because you lowered the rate so long, you let the rot get so bad that it's actually going to burn away in the bust. And then this 1,000, this is stable. So if the Fed actually does go to a healthy thing, you should be buying stocks when it hits 1,000. Again, they're just going to bail out again. The situation's so bad. Like you actually can't let the stock market drop this much without like, I don't know, causing America to collapse overnight. So again, bailouts on volatility. Every time you bail out, the situation gets worse. The problem is you're ignoring the current panic, or like the current forest fire, you're just dousing when it should be there. But the problem is this makes volatility much worse over time. So this is why in the quote, over time, America's forest and economy have become less robust. What happens is you're dousing the fire right here, but the next time the fire does pop up, it's massive. So I don't think this video is going to work. I hope it does. Okay, so this is what volatility is. So this like fat dude, he jumps in the water with a ball. Watch the ball. Shoots up so high. That's what volatility is. When you go from like a small rate of change to now you're jumping up so high. So suppressing volatility is like dragging a ball underwater. And then when it does start to come up, the Fed bails out, so they drag the ball further down underwater. The problem is eventually it's going to skyrocket, and you drag the ball down underwater so far that when it does jump up out of the water, it's going to be massive. Something you've never ever seen before. So when volatility skyrockets, this is when records are broken. So I'm not going to play any of these videos. Go watch them though; they're really important. So this one right here is the 1987 stock market crash, where he's talking about essentially they wiped out like 25% overnight. I think is the number. I don't know about 25%. They probably wiped out like 10-15%. And this was a very volatile event. And this is where they made circuit breakers, which said, well, if the stock market's going to drop 8, 10, whatever, 12%, now it's going to stop for that day. Before they didn't actually have that. Go watch the 1929 too. This is really important you do watch these. I really do recommend you. I'm going to show the beginning of this one.
That sense of
Because this is what we're doing right now. Because everyone's sort of in that bubble mindset that we had in the Roaring '20s.
there is no limit, and that all this expansion, this success, this elan, we're not really going to have to pay for it. Now, of course, that didn't turn out to be true. You could see the crash. Why do you think they called it the crash? I mean, it's really an airborne collapse metaphor. You can't crash if you're never left the ground. And it's not like a crack up where you're on the ground and you collide into something else. Rather, it's, the plane fell.
Anyway, you're about to go through that. I'm going to okay. So 401k is another part of the financial system. This is a common way people work towards retirement. So what happens is everyone takes a part of their paycheck and you invest in the stock market. This gives a small to medium constant upward pressure on the stock market. And then when everyone does start retire, you would get a small to medium downward pressure on the stock market. That's the ideal scenario. A period of better than average than a period of worse than average. What is actually going to happen is people are going to realize 401ks are a literal Ponzi scheme by definition. And then everyone's going to rush to the exit and the stock market's going to collapse. 401ks were a brilliant propaganda from the government, in my opinion. Because it's like everyone thinks it's going to work. No, you're literally just making a Ponzi scheme, bro. Social Security is another way people do this. You take a tiny bit of your paycheck and it's given to the elderly. And then when you're old, you're going to get a paycheck from the young. This is literally by definition a pyramid scheme. This is like the definition of a pyramid scheme. The question is, well, why hasn't it collapsed then, Michael? You're calling it a pyramid scheme. Why hasn't it collapsed? Because it's based on generations. So as long as the next generation is bigger than the last, this is going to work. This also requires the federal government is solvent, which is soon to not be the case. So the lower generation, you're not getting Social Security. It's literally impossible. So you see right here, this is when Social Security was initiated right here. You see these triangle right here. This is when Social Security would have worked perfectly. The problem is this, there's a rectangle right here. Social Security is not going to work here. It's just impossible. So this lower generation, where I'm in this row right here. I'm not getting Social Security ever. It's literally impossible because you need that triangle and it's only going to work through the triangle. It would never work with a square. So I'm going to give you a tool called the bank web. So a healthy financial system is a disconnected financial system. So you see over here, there's 7 independent debt systems, all on a single money system. So what happened was, or if this bank wants to really get greedy and blow up, will be my guest. It's not going to affect any of these other systems. But a problem is a heavily interconnected financial system is one that's doomed to die. So what we did, well, now we're going to connect all the financial systems together, or all the debt systems together into one financial system. Well, now if this bank gets really, really greedy, it's going to blow up the entire system and a bunch of banks are going to blow up. When everything is independent, there is no too big to fail. It's just not possible. But when everything is connected, now you have a too big to fail group. So do you either have a banking republic or a banking democracy? Initially, the banking system used to be independent. So you used to have those 12 independent banking systems. So then if one system got really greedy and blew up, it's not going to affect that badly every other. The problem is this was built upon the ideology of the nation to be a democratic republic. The problem is we didn't do that. We connected all the systems because why not? So now the system is interconnected. You now have just one giant bubble. Instead of one person getting greedy and making a bubble blow up, you now have everyone's being greedy and it's going to blow up the entire thing. And again, all systems collapse in the long run. And the bigger the system, the bigger the collapse. So you have this national bomb. You have this national bomb about to go off. And then make sure you take into consideration this is a global situation. You exist in a global financial system, which means this isn't just America. This is every single nation. This is why I have a bleak. So what's a sign your financial system is already cancerous? When everyone is buying in. So when you have FOMO or YOLO. So what you don't, if FOMO, in case you don't know, is fear of missing out. Essentially, that's like, I'm going to buy in because I think I'm going to miss those gains. Or you say YOLO, you only live once, let's buy into the financial system. Those are signs your financial system is already cancerous and needs to be like put down like a dog. When everyone starts constantly looking at the state of the financial system, your financial system is already cancerous. So literally no one should ever actually even care about the financial system. You should never even hear news about the financial system. The second you start hearing news about the financial system, you already know it's too cancerous. And that's on the that's on the boom too. So if you're hearing about massive stock market gains, you're already in a cancerous system. You should not be hearing that. There's stock cafes on campus where you'll go and you'll get coffee and you'll see stock tickers go across the screen. This is a sign your financial system is beyond cancerous. This is actually insane that this happens. The only other time this has happened was like during the Roaring '20s, right before the Great Depression. People would go and like get coffee in these cafes and they would see the tickers like constantly update. Your financial system needs to be put down at that point. Like it's disgusting. When a false utopia is offered, this means your financial system is like already cancerous too. So a lot of the time, full employment is offered. Like the Federal Reserve just said, oh, let's work towards full employment. It's a really bad idea to do so. Same with retirement for all. It's literally just not possible. People do have to live off their income a certain bit. So when you're saying, well, retirement for all, it doesn't really work. Essentially what happens is the financial system reaches a point where you either keep feeding that cancer or you just let it collapse. And when it does collapse, it takes everything with it. So what does a financial system bailout look like? Well, financial systems can get bailed out just like how the debt system gets bailed out by lowering the rate. It can also look like the Fed buying assets. So like the Fed buying debt or the Fed buying stocks. The Fed buying stocks, this is literally strictly illegal. It's illegal for them to do this, yet they still do. This is like really, really, really bad for the economy when they do this. When the Fed helps merge or buy companies or banks, this is also bad. This shouldn't be happening. And then when the Fed, FDIC insuring bank accounts, even though they weren't actually insured, that's like, it's the financial system bailout 101. Okay, so visualizing each system, I just showed you a financial system at the very top. Unfortunately, I don't have a confident academics thing here, but you should not be confident in academics. They don't know what's happening.